Senator Dianne Feinstein has been pretty much a conservative for most of her career. She's of that school of neoliberalism that is, I mean, it's just favoring the wealthy as politics. And thankfully, she has announced she is going to retire. It's under sad circumstances. I wish it weren't so, but I'm glad to see her go. This is the Young Turks talking about this news recently. Here they are.
Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein has just announced that she will no longer run for re-election in 2024, which is a pretty major moment in history because she was non-committal to not running in 2024. Now, there are already talks about who will run for her position. Now, she says in a statement, I'm announcing today I will not run for re-election in 2024, but intend to accomplish as much for California as I can through the end of next year when my term ends. She has accomplished a lot for herself during her time in the Senate, including increasing her net worth by $200 million. Public servant.
That is, by the way, something this is an aspirational law. This is assuming we get about 2 elections straight with Democrats controlling everything and progressives gaining a majority of the Democratic Party. Pie in the sky stuff, but I would love, crazy as it may seem, to pass laws that prohibit politicians from getting any other income except the income they draw as their paycheck. Obviously, that wouldn't stop their spouses from doing this or that, but I mean, you should not be retiring with the better part of $250 million if you are a senator, for God's sake.
Let me continue. She also says, I campaigned in 2018 on several priorities for California and the nation, preventing and combating wildfires, mitigating the effects of record-setting drought.
No, if you tried all that, you totally failed.
Jesus Christ, I would not list these things because every single thing that she has listed has been a failure. Responding to the homelessness crisis.
Wow.
And ensuring all Americans have access to affordable, high-quality health care. To be fair,
that's not even true.
Well, to be fair, California does have a good Medicaid program. I remember when I was a kid and my parents didn't have money for health care, it was called Healthy Families back in the day and it was excellent. But that was the statewide program.
Yeah,
she's a federal employee.
And she's against Medicare for all. That's just nothing but a lie. But it doesn't really matter because she didn't write that statement.
Exactly.
We'll get to who actually wrote it in a second.
Congress has enacted legislation on all of these topics over the past several years, but more needs to be done and I will continue these efforts.
What legislation? What are you talking about?
I just want to reiterate, she increased her net worth by $200 million as a public servant.
Yeah.
That says a lot.
And she didn't go in a billionaire, so it wasn't like, oh, she had 1.2 billion and now it's 1.4 billion. No, her family somehow, it's always a coincidence. And
wait, did I mishear that? She has 1.4 billion? Oh, she increased. Oh. I'll have to listen to that again. It's besides the point. If she only had 200 million, that in and of itself would be disgusting to me. The fact that she increased her worth by that much, good Lord.
Anytime you talk to a reporter in America, whenever it's a powerful person, oh, it's a coincidence. Or campaign contributors got everything they ever wanted from her. Coincidence. She personally got $200 million. Coincidence. Huh? Well, a lot of coincidences with Dianne Feinstein. What you're gonna see about her retirement from now on in mainstream media is, what a legendary figure Dianne Feinstein.
Just prepare yourself for that. That was the hardest, when I kind of woke up in 2016 as to what American politics actually is. I was actually, believe it or not, delighted when Donald Trump won the nomination for the GOP. Because I thought, well, look at that. We're going to get our first woman president. Oh boy. Still hurting from that piece of arrogance. No, get him, Jank. 100% correct. The corporate media will act as though she was this like legendary figure who fought for people's rights and blah, blah, blah. They're going to show that picture of her next to Harvey Milk constantly, as though she hasn't backed legislation that Milk would have hated consistently since those days, with admittedly some exceptions, but an absolutely nightmare neoliberal agenda. And it's gonna grate to see her get praised over and over and over, and it's going to utterly, it's going to give a wrong impression to people who are just getting into politics or people who only casually watch politics about who Dianne Feinstein was.
Okay, just she accomplished so much, and then so I always read the articles and I go, because I know the facts. Okay, what was so much that she accomplished? Over 30 years. Okay. Assault weapons ban, super happy about it. She was part of the people that did that. You know why? Because she was involved in one of the worst, like one of the most historic shootings in American history, where Harvey Milk, the great LGBTQ fighter and mayor in San Francisco, was shot and killed. So that affected her personally. She's like, whoa, let's do something about this, okay? It's the CIA spying. She revealed some of their spying, which was great. I'm happy about it. You know why? Because they spied in on her. And she even said it. We covered it on the Young Turks at the time. She's like, well, before when you're spying on Americans, what's the big deal? But now senators, you do this to me, how dare you? So all of a sudden she cared. Two things in over 30 years, and only because they personally affected her. And so that is a miserable record. But they never, but wait a minute, is that all she did? No. That the crimes of omission in mainstream media is far worse. They don't tell you that she voted for giant tax cuts for the rich when Republicans were in charge.
With Republicans.
They don't tell you that she voted for the Iraq War. They don't tell you that her voting record is actually, weirdly, for one of the most progressive states in the country, California, one of the most conservative voting records you'll ever find on the Democratic side.
This happens in California, by the way, the same way Gavin Newsom is the governor of California. He's done some fine things, yes. By and large, I'm not satisfied with the guy. But he's able to be in power because a lot of folks that don't follow politics very closely look at mainstream Democrats, or rather, I should say, corporate Democrats, the way I used to look at Hillary Clinton. I liked Bernie Sanders more than Hillary Clinton way back in 2015, but I voted, sorry to tell you this, for Clinton in the primaries because I felt for the same line that mainstream media was pushing, which was that Sanders wasn't electable and Clinton was. With knowledge I have now, I want to just wring that young Jake's neck. Young being a generous word there, but it's not so. Similarly, they look at your Newsoms and your Feinsteins and they think this is a serious politician. And they look at Katie Porter, who's pushing progressive ideas. And they think, oh, that's a crazy lefty. As though there's no reason this person is as far left as they are. We have to stop thinking like that because the weakness in the Democratic Party, the genuine weakness, comes from the right. It is the people that claim to be centrists and are in fact simply loyal to corporations. That is where the weakness is in the Democratic Party. If you had all progressives running, you would never see Republicans hold a majority ever again.
Her voting record is so conservative that it's to the right of where I was when I was a liberal Republican growing up in the 80s and 90s. I mean, it's so conservative economically to the hilt. Yet you will see now all of these great pronouncements of what a great Democratic left-wing liberal leader she was, a historic figure. And finally, and we're gonna tell you what's actually going on in a second. Finally, they say, oh, and you have to remember, she's a woman. Wow, okay, she's like 50% of the population. Okay, well, but I didn't know she was that historic. Okay, if you're a woman who's a trendsetter and you actually fight for us and you fight for other women, then I love you. If you're a woman who's just a corporate stooge, I don't give a goddamn that you're a woman.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Now, in terms of why she's really stepping down, I'm sure most people know this, but for those who don't, she has been experiencing cognitive decline. It's been in the news. Even some of her own staffers have spoken to the press about this, of course, with the protection of anonymity.
I'm going to let this part play just in case you guys weren't aware, but yeah, and then we're going to move on. But yeah, Dianne Feinstein, she's been genuinely having some health problems that are now starting to affect her job. So it makes sense that she's stepping down now. There is a slim chance that she will not actually be able to finish out her current term. I say slim and I mean it. I don't think it's likely that she won't finish her term, but there is a chance. Here's Anna.
But Christian Hall tweeted the following. Asked by reporters about her announcement to resign, Senator Feinstein says, quote, "If I haven't made that decision, I haven't released anything." A staffer then told the senator that a statement had been released. Feinstein responded saying, quote, "I didn't know they put it out."
And no, she's gone, guys. Yeah. Like, people report talking to her 1 minute, getting an answer, the next minute getting a different answer because she already forgot. By the way, it's on tape. We've seen her do it in hearings. She'll read a statement and then just a little while later, she'll reread the statement because she forgot she just read it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they go on for a bit there, and I don't want to dwell on that. You get it. She cognitive decline. Okay, fair enough. She's an older lady. That unfortunately happens sometimes. I in terms of health, I wish her the best. But something interesting about the fact that she may not finish her term, and this is mostly just so we can watch Gavin Newsom squirm a little bit. This is from the Los Angeles Times. When Governor Gavin Newsom pledged during the 2021 recall election to appoint a black woman to replace Feinstein if she stepped down, political experts speculated that he was referring to Barbara Lee. At the time, I believe what he said was he had multiple people in mind, but they were all black women. This is a little background on Barbara Lee, and you'll see why I like her. As the only member of Congress to vote against the measure that authorized President George W. Bush to use military force after the September 11th terrorist attacks. Remember when he lied to us? Said he had knowledge of weapons of mass destruction, but he did not. In fact, he had been told the opposite. Lee was thrust into the national spotlight. She argued that the law granted the president too much power and warned her fellow lawmakers to be careful not to embark on an open-ended war with neither an exit strategy nor a focused target. Now that seems like the only sane voice at the time. I remember those days, though. And this next part, unfortunately, makes sense to me from the attitude of the country in those days, which was not sure what patriotism was supposed to look like, other than apparently unquestioning loyalty to the Führer. I'm sorry, I mean president. In the aftermath of her vote, Lee was viewed as a pariah by many, including people in her party, and received death threats. But after decades of overseas entanglements, politicians in both parties now make arguments that echo what Lee said way back in 2001. We got attacked in September of 2001. Think of the foresight you have to look past the collapsing buildings and look at where we were sending troops and under what circumstances. That's incredible foresight. If Newsom actually makes good on what he said, rather, if Feinstein actually does have to step down for health reasons, and Newsom actually makes good with what he said, boy, we're gonna have someone in the Senate that I would be delighted to have there. But that's not likely because Feinstein says she's going to finish out her term. Let's assume she will. there are already candidates that are running for her seat. They announced before she said she would retire, I think in part to encourage her to do so. Cruel or not, it is what it is. We have Adam Schiff. He's confirmed. And Katie Porter, also confirmed. My pick, Katie Porter. She's the progressive. I think Adam Schiff is just Feinstein 2.0 in terms of his policy. I do appreciate the work he did on the January 6th committee. No denying that. But when it comes down to how he votes on, in my opinion, the key issues, economic issues, very much a neoliberal, whereas Porter is very much a progressive. And Porter would have my support. That said, I'm going to be looking at those primaries. I'm very curious to see who California is going to pick. I'm very curious to see who they're going to have to choose from. If you are in California, there is a link in the description that will tell you when you are supposed to vote in the primaries. Mark it on your calendar. We need a lot of voices, and a robust primary is a healthy primary. A lot of people engaging in political debate is good for the party. Even if the person you like doesn't end up getting elected, they still get time in front of the cameras. They still get to pitch their argument. And if their argument's bad, they get it picked apart by their competition. If their competition has bad arguments, they get theirs picked apart by the other people that want that seat. The end result is they go in to the general election not preparing to walk into landmines that they should have known about. And frankly, you get them having to think more about what they're saying and how it will come off. It is good to have a robust primary. So I encourage you, vote in the primaries, because I think we should go especially in a deep blue state like California, we should go as left as we possibly can. And I will be covering them with great interest.